Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he shall be devoured. With this in mind, let us bow our heads in prayer.
Con esas palabras en mente vamos a arrodillarnos, hacer una palabra de oración.
Heavenly Father, thank you for this blessed Sabbath day that we're able to come together and worship your name. We ask you, Lord, that you may help us to learn of you, Lord, more today, and that wherever the Darvin each day, Lord, that we may come to understand your will, Lord, that you may speak your name, Lord, and we ask you to guide us and we may forgive us of any sin that we may have. We ask this in your name, in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. All right, I'd like to welcome everybody.
Me gustaría darle la bienvenida a todos, especialmente por las visitas que vienen y tan feliz de verles a todos. Y también me gustaría en este momento pedirle a los diáconos que vengan hacia adelante para recoger los diezmos y ofrendas. Vamos a hablar acerca de paz y seguridad. Nuestro siguiente himno será
I think, Johnny, I asked him last minute to help me, so I think we're helping. Want to see if we can use them some more, right? So I thank God for allowing us to be able to meet your brethren. I thank God for giving me the ability to share this word with you. And I hope that we can pray in our hearts. So God is the one that speaks to us, not because I'm in any way worthy to speak for God, but that I think that God will speak through His word. So as we read the Bible, I'm hoping that we can see Him personally speaking to me. But then today I want us to talk about something that is essential for the happiness and the well-being for humanity. And that's for us to have peace and safety. Peace and safety are not bad. In fact, we were told as we were looking into parenting that those are two essential things you need to provide to your children. You need to provide them a place of peace and a place of safety. That's what your home is supposed to be. Nowhere else is your child going to feel the way he feels at home. And it's supposed to be a good thing.
Y debe ser algo bueno.
Sadly,
Tristemente,
as we grow
al
older,
crecer,
we get accustomed to that,
nos acostumbramos
and we
a
will
eso
seek
y
peace and
vamos a
safety
buscar las
at
paz
the
y
cost
seguridad
of all principles
al costo de
and at the
todos
cost
los
of
principios
anything
y al
and
costo
everything.
de cualquier cosa y todo.
And generally, we don't seek it in the right way.
Generalmente no lo buscamos en la
Brethren,
manera
I sent you
correcta.
the study there to
Hermanos,
the
yo les
WhatsApp group
envié
because I
el
don't, sadly I don't have, I
porque
forgot
Se me olvidó
my adapter to put it in the TV so you
para
can see
poner la
it. So I hope that you
televisión, pero
can
espero que
follow it there
ustedes
along
puedan
with me.
seguirlo ahí conmigo.
In 1 John chapter
En
4,
primera de
4
Juan
verse 18,
4:18.
I want us to remember, brethren,
Quiero que
that
recordemos
in all my
que en
studies,
todos mis estudios
I am very much against the
yo
idea
estoy en contra de la idea
to put fear in you.
de poner temor.
Okay? 1 John 4:18, why is that?
Primera
It
de
says,
Juan
there is
4:18.
no fear in love,
No hay
but
temor en amor,
perfect love
pero el perfecto
casteth
amor
out fear,
saca el temor,
because fear
porque
hath
el
torment.
temor tormenta.
He that feareth is
Y
not
el
made
temor
perfect
no hace
in love.
el amor
So if
perfecto.
today
Así que si hoy
you're only moved because of
solamente
fear,
estás movido por causa del
it's
temor,
the wrong reason.
es entonces la manera incorrecta.
Fear should not be the
El
reason
temor
why
no
you
debe ser
change.
la razón por la cual tú vas a cambiar.
Love should be the
Debería
reason.
ser el amor.
Now, understanding this,
Ahora, está entendiendo eso.
we need to be realistic.
Necesitamos
The reality is
la
that
realidad es que
Satan,
Satanás
he is like a
es
lion
como un león rugiente
looking to devour us.
buscando a quien devorar.
This shouldn't make us afraid
Esto no debería hacernos temer
because we have someone
porque
on our
tenemos a
side.
alguien de nuestro lado.
And even though the
Y
lion
aunque el león
is seeking to
está
devour us,
buscando
we
devorarnos,
can find I don't know if
al ser curioso.
children are curious.
Los niños son curiosos.
And that's used so they can learn new things. And if a child is not curious,
Si
there's
el niño
something
no
wrong
es
with the
curioso,
child.
entonces hay algo
Because
equivocado.
curiosity leads them to want to read,
Curiosidad nos
to
lleva
learn
a
more,
leer, a
to, hey,
aprender,
what is this leaf
¿qué
made out of?
es esta hoja aquí?
What's life?
¿Cómo es la vida?
It seeks them to, it helps them to
Busquen una
investigate
manera
or
de
to
cómo
seek
investigar,
answers.
buscar las respuestas.
The disciples were also curious.
Los discípulos también eran curiosos.
And I think many of us are
Y yo
very
creo que
curious as to
muchos de
what's happening
nosotros
around the
estamos
world.
curiosos en qué es lo que
And the
está
disciples
sucediendo en el
asked
mundo.
Jesus, some
Los
because they were very curious, and one of the people that they asked, Matthew 24,
Mateo 24,
verse 3.
verso 3.
And let's listen to what the
Vamos a
disciples
ver lo que
asked.
los discípulos preguntaron.
Matthew 24,
Mateo 24,
I'm going to read there,
vamos a leer ahí,
verse 3.
verso 3.
24:3, it says, as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end
¿Cuál será la
of
señal
the
de tu
world?
venida y el fin del mundo?
So they were wanting to know,
Así que
hey,
ellos
when
querían saber
will it be the end of all of
cuándo iba a
this?
ser el fin de todo eso.
When will it be
¿Cuándo
your second coming?
iba a ser tu segunda venida?
Now, they didn't fully understand
No
what they were even
completamente
asking,
entendieron
because they did not understand the fact that Jesus was going to leave them alone, he was going to die, leave them alone, and then come back way after. Either way, we have hindsight and we know, right, exactly what their failures were, and we know what to look for the answers.
Y buscar respuestas.
Now, what does Jesus answer?
Ahora,
Verse
¿qué fue
4
lo que
through
Jesús
6, Matthew
contestó?
24.
Mateo 24, 4
Let's read now 4 to 6.
¿Qué fue
And
lo que
Jesus answered and said unto them,
contestó?
take heed that no man deceive you. For For many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled. For these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Jesus didn't want to scare his disciples into following him. He said, hey, there's going to be wars, rumors of wars, there's going to be all kinds of awful pestilences, and as you continue reading, Dan, here in Matthew 24, you see a lot of chaos. But he says, don't be troubled, don't be scared. It's not the end. These things have to happen. It's important for us to remember that all these things were not going to define the end. These things were going to happen either way. Jesus said, I need you to look for something else that is going to be a sign of my second coming. And we have spoken about this before, but I want us to look at it now in God's church. And in all churches for that matter. I think that the spirit that Jesus will mention, we'll see that in a moment, will overtake, sadly, but also will overtake many of the people of God. And I want us to look at that, okay? In Testimonies for the Church, volume 5, page 753, so 5T 753, it says, while these prophecies, the ones in Matthew 24, received a partial fulfillment at the destruction of Jerusalem, they have a more direct application till which days, or to which days? Till the last days. If you don't have the notes, you can download them there from the WhatsApp group. I went ahead and sent them there. So the application for Matthew 24 is more directly affecting or applies to us. And if you continue reading there in Testimonies for the Church, she says that it's for the future, not in the past. The fulfillment of Matthew 24, a lot of it, not all of it, has to do with the future. Now, he says here that this was not going to be the end. Wars, rumors of wars was not going to be the end. Let's go back here, Matthew 24, and we're going to read verse 7 and 8. Matthew 24, verse 7 and 8. It says, for nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines, pestilence, and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of what? Sorrows. Brethren, and we've made many mistakes. Okay? We've looked at World War I, World War II as the sign of the end. And our church, our brethren said, hey, we don't need to buy property, we don't need to build schools, we don't need to build hospitals, because the end is here. But Jesus said, no, that's not the end. This is the beginning of the sorrows. That means we shouldn't be looking at World War I, World War II, where more than 100 million people died. In fact, some of the worst wars in history have happened in the last 200 years. But don't use this as the evidence that God is near, because these are only the signs of the beginning. And often we point at pandemics and we tell people, be afraid, without God you're going to die. And people go to church right during the pandemic, but then a year after the pandemic, no one's going back. Because fear doesn't work to bring a change. It's never going to work. Amen. So sadly, I believe we made a mistake, right? There's been hundreds of millions have died because of famines. But he said that's not the sign of the end. Some of the deadliest disasters have happened within the last 200 years. Some of the deadliest earthquakes, some of the deadliest tsunamis have happened within the last couple hundred years. But Jesus said, don't point at this as that I'm right at the door. He said it's only the beginning. Those that have gone through motherhood or parenthood, right? You know that right before the child comes, right? Many times back then especially, they were so afraid because they didn't really know when the child was going to come. They didn't, sadly, many of them wouldn't keep as clear track of when the conception was and when the baby was coming. So it was a lot of a guessing game. Right? Belly was big and you're like, I know it's sometime close by. And sometimes mothers would start getting some contractions, what is it, Brixton's contractions, like 6 months into their pregnancy. 7 months into their pregnancy, and many of them think, oh, this is it, it's coming. Turns out the baby is still 3 months away. So Jesus said all these things are only false contractions. Be patient. And I want us to think about this today. Because, brethren, if the pandemic is the reason why we're seeking God, I can assure you we're going to turn away from Him in no time. If the rumors of a possible nuclear war starting again because of Ukraine and Russia, if that's what's motivating to seek God, then we're doing it for the wrong reasons. These things are going to happen all the time. But it should not be the reason or the motivator to seek God. Let's remember that these were only the beginning of sorrows. I want us to continue in Matthew 24, but we're going to skip all the way to verse 42, and we're going to read it to verse 44, because here is what Jesus said things were going to be right before He came. And I want us to apply it to our church here in Marysville. Because I don't care what's happening over there in Honduras, even though it's my country. You know, I don't care what's happening in Romania, in Ukraine. I care what's happening here in Marysville, in our local church. And I believe we can apply this to us today. Matthew 24, verse 42 through 44. Watch therefore, for ye know not what hour the Lord doth come. Jesus said World War II was not going to be the evidence of the coming of Jesus. Nuclear war in Russia was not going to be the evidence of the coming of Jesus. These things are going to happen. Listen to what He says. But know this, that if a good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched, and would not have suffered his house to be broken. Therefore be ye also ready. Interesting, He says, hey, be ready, but don't look at wars as the sign of my coming. He says, be ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. He says, when you least expect it. Brethren, if nuclear war breaks out in Ukraine, and over there I'm expecting God to come, right? But God says, no, it's not going to be like that. Don't look at these as the sign of my coming. And we're so intrigued with these things because we're naturally curious. We're fascinated by wars and airplanes. My son just learned that there's war airplanes and there's jets. He thought the fastest thing were airplanes, and now he learned that there's jets. And immediately I saw his curiosity peak, like, what is a jet? What does it do? And I could start telling him about destruction weapons, and that's going to put fear in him. So I told him, hey, they're the fastest thing that humans have made so far, right? Supersonic jets. My brethren, often we get so intrigued in these things, and it engrosses our mind. It takes up our time. It makes us nervous. It makes us think, what's going to happen tomorrow? How is the end going to happen? I have 3 goats. If you know anyone that wants goats, please let me know. I have 3 goats, brethren. And these 3 goats, I acquired them from a lady that started mass reproducing goats right at the beginning of the pandemic. She started mass reproducing chickens and ducks. And when I went to her place, she said, please take as many as you want. I didn't know what she meant by that. Now I know that she was trying to get rid of these goats. She said, I thought the end was coming. I thought the pandemic, that was it. And I started getting ready. Now she wants to get rid. Nobody wanted them. Nobody wanted to take them. You don't want goats, brethren. There's something else. Brethren, Jesus won't come when we expect it. Josh was telling me that for the Y2K, some of you are not old enough to remember the Y2K. You remember the year 2000? Some of you were born more after that. But in the Y2K, people were getting ready. Some of our members dug holes in the ground and bought giant tanks of gasoline and filled it up with thousands and thousands of tanks of gasoline because the end was coming, the Y2K is coming. And they bought storages and made storages and put food in there. What happened in Y2K, brethren? You know the worst thing that happened in Y2K? Some blockbuster card holders got charged like $10 million, and then they realized it was a mistake because the computer switched. That was the worst thing that happened. But people were so afraid. People were going to church. January 1st, 2000 came around and everybody forgot about it. What then are we supposed to be looking at, brethren? Many, even in the time of Paul, we won't read it, but 2 Thessalonians, many people thought that Jesus was right around the corner. He said, he's coming, he's right there, he's coming, let's get ready. And brethren, I'm also tempted to do that. I've been recently putting a bag together, my emergency bag, with live straws and some things in there. I know that's not going to save me. A live straw is not going to save you in a nuclear war. I think we should be somewhat ready for anything, but let's not look at this as the coming of Jesus and as a motivator to be faithful to God. The biggest problem, brethren, in the coming, right before Jesus comes, is going to be how normal everything will be. Matthew 24, verse 37, it says, continuing on, speaking about his second coming, says, Matthew 24, 37, but as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Brethren, how many pandemics or how many wars and evil things motivated people to go into the ark with Noah? Nothing. Because none of that was happening. That surely did happen. People were killing each other in the time of Noah. But that motivated no one. Jesus says, right before I come, the same thing is going to happen. Don't look at wars as the sign, because these things have to happen. Okay, people are going to kill people. That's just the reality of it. I don't want you to look at that as a sign of my second coming. But yet we've taken those things and pointed them as the sign of the second coming of Christ, when Jesus said, don't do that. he said, I want you to look at this. Look at what was happening in the time of Noah. Verse 38. Okay? For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating, drinking, marrying, seeking who they're going to marry or giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark. Everybody wanted to just be happy without God and in sin and destroying anything that got in their way. There's an obsession in today's world with who they're going to get married, what they're going to get married, how they're going to get married. No one wants to be alone. Everybody wants to be with somebody, but nothing works out, so they find somebody else. That doesn't work out. They find someone else. They go down the road. Now they're 60, 80 years old, and they're sad because there's no one for them. There is no happiness outside of God.
Amen.
The world is obsessed with who they're going to get married, what, where, and when, and how. But that's the world. We'll talk about the church in a little bit. Luke 17:28. Luke 17, verse 28, it says, likewise also as it was in the days of Lot, they did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they builded. So Lot, same thing. And that was Luke 17:28. So in the time of Lot, right before Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed, it wasn't the pandemics, it wasn't the wars, it was none of that showed that they were near the destruction. But it was the fact that they were obsessed with monetary things, with things that are just object, materialistic, mundane. So they were obsessed with what they wanted, with their contentness at the cost of anyone and anything. And then remember, it tells us that they knew not until the flood came. Matthew 24:39. They knew not until the flood came and took them all away. Okay, Matthew 24:39. They had no idea until the flood came. And so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. That means that nuclear war is not going to be the sign of Jesus coming. And if we're looking for that, brethren, I have some bad news. It's not the sign of the coming of Jesus. Brethren, whole empires have been destroyed and the world has been reset. Both during the Roman Empire time and also at the Great Flood. If the Roman Empire wouldn't have fallen, they're saying that the advancement of technology we would have today would be beyond description. God said, no. We lost all the technology that the Romans had. It was a reset and we went into the Dark Ages. So even if all these ends tomorrow because of a war, is not defining the coming of Jesus. Technology as we know it could end. That's still not the sign that Jesus is coming, because then it will advance even further. So then what is it? It's 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 1 through 3. 1 Thessalonians 5, 1 through 3. But of the times of the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. For ye yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a what?
A thief.
As a thief in the night. It says, brethren, you know exactly how the coming of Christ will be. People will not be expecting it. People will not be ready, and the end will come. For when they shall say, peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, as they shall not escape. Brethren, the Bible tells us that the world is going to be in a state of apparent peace and safety. And I think we are there. Look at most countries, most first world countries and second world countries. Generally, they are at peace and safety. There's always chaos. There's always wars. That's never going to end. But the vast majority of people are enjoying a state of peace and safety. Jeremiah 6:14 says, Jeremiah chapter 6 verse 14 says, they have healed also the hurt of the daughter of my people slightly, saying, peace, peace, when there is no peace. The world is crying out that they want more peace. Everybody's seeking peace. Everybody's seeking a safe place, a happy marriage, a happy relationship, and they'll do it and destroy anyone, destroy any family, destroy any future of a happy generation at their cost that they're happy. 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 1 tells us something very interesting. 2 Timothy 3:1. I believe, brethren, that 2 Timothy chapter 3 perfectly describes what we are going through today. Okay? 2 Timothy 3:1, it says, this know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. It says perilous times, dangerous times, fearful times. Does Paul now begin to describe famines and wars and earthquakes and chaos and bombs and burnings? But isn't that dangerous? That's the danger that we should be looking for. He begins to describe something that to the eye of the world doesn't seem dangerous at all. But to the Christian, it's one of the most dangerous things. Verse 2 and on. It says, for man shall be lovers of their own selves. That's one of those most dangerous things. When I am the most important thing in the whole world, where I love myself above everything and anything. Covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God. Let's pause there. Brother, when you read these things, covetous, what is the big deal with covetousness? To be a boaster, what's so dangerous about that? To be proud. Don't we have a whole month, right, that's dedicated specifically to pride? Never in the history of the world, right, are people so happy to be proud. Said, I am proud, and we're going to have a whole month to talk about pride. Blasphemers. All these things, disobedient to parents. You often hear how children are suing parents all the time. How parents don't know anything. How now children can go behind the back of the parents and do things that are awful for them, but the world allows it. And now they're changing the age where a child now can be freed from their parents. They say maybe around 12, that might be a good age now. Maybe 14. Brethren, I like the version, and listen to this version, because I like how they put it. 2 Timothy chapter 3, Because oftentimes I feel like in the King James we often forget that what exactly it's saying. It says people will love only themselves and money. Verse 2, they will be proud and boast about themselves. They will abuse others with insults. They will not obey their parents. They will be ungrateful and against all that is pleasing to God. And I'm not making that up. Clearly, this is a version that was written a long time ago to let us know that, hey, this will be the danger of the last moments. They will have no love, verse 3. They will have no love for others. Will refuse to forgive anyone. They will talk about others to hurt them and will have no self-control. They will be cruel. They will hate what is good. People will turn against their friends. They will do foolish things without thinking. They will be so proud of themselves. Instead of loving God, they will love pleasure. Brethren, if this is not describing our current state in this world, I don't know what else can describe it. Where a mother would much rather end the life of her unborn child because it's going to be inconvenient, or because I don't want to, up to minutes before the child takes its first breath. And everyone's okay with that. And if you're against that, you're wrong. You're taking my right away. About 75% of Americans are okay with this. Brethren, the fact that we're living in a moment where everybody is all about themselves, where it's all about loving me, about being proud, about marrying whoever and whatever I want, truce breakers. No one's married for a lifetime anymore. Who cares what you promised at the altar? As long as you're happy. Then they try it again, then they're not happy. Try it a third time, they're not happy. This probably describes the world. Now, brethren, what about us? That's the world. We're not in the world. We left the world. But my question is, has this same environment affected us in the church? Maybe not to the same degree. But sin is sin and wrong is wrong no matter how much we have it. Are we seeking peace and safety and relaxation? Are we in a state where, well, I'm not in the world, so now I can cross my hands and I'm good? And I see this, sadly, in many. Testimony to Ministers, page 407. I like the way it puts it here. Testimony to Ministers, page 407, it says, there never will be a time in the history of the church when God's worker can fold his hands and be at ease, saying, all is peace and safety. Why do I need to work in the church? I have a full-time job. I'm a full-time mom, full-time dad. I have so many projects at home. I have so many things to do in this life. I need to build a house. I need to buy a better car. But I go to church every Sabbath, so I'm good. Is that not the same attitude that is described here? As long as I'm a member, leave me my 6 days in peace. It says, then it is that sudden destruction cometh. When the church members say, I'm a member, I keep the Sabbath, that's all that matters. Allow me to build my future. I don't have time for missionary work during the week. I don't have time to do God's work. You want me to be at church at 8 in the morning? Are you crazy? I am so tired of the week. You want me to go do missionary work in the afternoon? I'm tired of working. I need to rest. Peace and safety. That's what I want. And that's the problem, brethren. That the world is not just in that state, but that we are so engrossed with materialistic things. We're so engrossed with, I need a retirement plan. Of course I need a retirement plan, brethren. But if we are acquiring a retirement plan at the cost of doing the work of God, then we're building on a foundation made out of sand.
Amen.
What's the purpose if I have $1 million in my bank account by the time I reach 65? If I sacrifice the work of God every step of the way. No one wants to live in an apartment, brethren. I know that. We all want a little house, a little ranch. And God can give you that because it's not good to live in the city. We know that. But never at the cost of God's work.
Amen.
We're doing the same thing the world is doing. Everything may move forward amid apparent prosperity. We're progressing, right? I'm not as my parents were in Honduras. I'm living better now. I'm not as my parents lived, as my grandparents lived. Are you really prospering though? Are you really growing? Or are you just looking to eat, drink, marry, and be happy? But Satan is wide awake, he's a roaring lion, and is studying and counseling with his evil angels another mode of attack where he can be successful. He knows, brethren, that Pride Month is not for us. I'm a Christian. I denounce Pride Month. I denounce abortion. But I work 6 days and I'm tired. I can't give missionary work to God. I can't be there early at church. Missionary work, don't even think about it. But I hate Pride Month. Satan is going to trap us no matter what. It says the contest will wax more and more fierce on the part of Satan, for he is moved by a power from beneath. Going to the next paragraph or the next slide. It says, as the work of God's people moves forward with sanctified restlessness energy, planting the standard of Christ's righteousness in the church, moved by a power from the throne of God. In other words, as we do the work that we're supposed to do. Brethren, do you know why we have such peace and safety? Do you know why we get to freely move within the U.S.? Sunday law is coming, but it hasn't come, and I don't care, it's in the future. It's because we're not doing work. If we did our work, that's what she's saying, listen, the great controversy will wax stronger, and stronger, and will become more and more determined. We are enjoying peace and safety at the cost of doing God's work. And we're saying the world is lost. But we have the safety because I'm going to heaven. And I have the safety because I can work and do whatever I want. As long as I make it to church once a week, I'm good. Brethren, I fear that we are deceiving ourselves. I fear that we are in a comfortable state. And I don't just see it here, brethren. I visited other churches in the local area, and they're in the exact same place. Every church is in the exact same place. Because we're all too busy building houses, marrying, giving into marriage, buying, giving into drinking. These things are good, brethren. God is not against you for you to be happy. But he says you're enjoying peace and safety because you're sitting with your arms crossed. Now, I want us to understand, brethren, that we're not going to convert Marysville. I don't know if you knew that. And I hope I'm a false prophet. Right? We're not going to convert all of Marysville. We're not going to convert all of Yuba. It's nowhere. We might be Jonah. It could be an exception. But generally, exceptions are rare. But even if Marysville will not be converted as a whole, that is no excuse for us to have such a laxed attitude. Such a place where, hey, I need to work for my home. There's that story, right, where God tells that man to push over a boulder. Remember that story? God tells the man, go, there's a boulder on top of the mountain, I need you to go push it. The man goes and pushes, does this for a week. The seventh day, he's all upset. He said, God, I've pushed this boulder for 7 days. I'm done with you. I'm tired. You're telling me to do something that's impossible. Remember what God tells him, right? It's a story. He said, I've never told you to do that which is impossible. He said, yes, you did. You told me to move that boulder. He said, no, I never told you to move the boulder. You will never move that boulder. I told you to push it. You will never move it. I went to do missionary work a few times here, but we have gone. And we got no results from it that I can see. I'm tired now. I'm not, because no one came. I gave out a few thousand invitations. I'm done. You gave me something impossible to do, God. I never told you to convert all of Marysville. I told you to go out and do your work. Doing the work, brethren, is not just for those outside, it's for us within. We accuse the world of enjoying peace and safety, but we're doing the exact same thing at the cost of God's work. And I hope, brethren, we can each examine ourselves. I hope that we can be honest. We all know what we do throughout the week. We all know what we do on Sabbath. The reality is that we still just want peace and safety, and just no one wants to go out there in the heat and do mission work. I don't want to go out there in the heat. But we have like 9 months that is not heat. Why did we do it then? The heat is not the reason, brethren. Testimony in 1 Thessalonians. God knows, brethren, and I'll read a few more verses before we finish today. God knows that it's going to be a difficult time in the end of time. Because TikTok was going to exist. Threads is coming along now. Twitter. And God knew that this was going to have a huge influence on us. So I'm not of the idea that you should never touch your phone. I think technology can be good. But let's not be like the rest of the world. 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 4 through 7 says, But ye brethren, 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 4 through 7, after he said that the coming of the Lord is not what they expect, it's coming soon, but not then. It says, But ye brethren are not in darkness, that the day shall overtake you as a thief. If we spend more time in TikTok than we do in doing missionary work, then that day will come as a thief to us. That's 100% a reality. It's not that TikTok is a sin, brethren. It's not. You find a lot of good things there. But if we have more time doing that than what it is reading our Bibles, spending quality time with our family, doing God's work, we're never going to move that boulder, brethren. We're not. But that doesn't give us a reason to sit all day long, right? Because we're so tired in front of YouTube, Netflix, etc. It says, Ye are the children of light, and the children of the day. We are not of the night, nor of darkness. Therefore, let us not sleep as do others. He's not saying don't ever fall asleep. God knew that it was going to be difficult. He knew that things were going to be hard. But he said, if you're asleep, at least make sure that you can watch and be sober. Don't get drunk by this world. Don't get drunk by the ambition that the world has. For they that sleep in the sleep in the night, and they that be drunken are drunken in the night. Brethren, the question is, has the same spirit taken over us? And I won't be able to read all the paragraphs that I have in the message that I sent you on WhatsApp. But please, brethren, I ask that you can go back and read them, because it describes the problem in our churches today. And in Testimonies of the Church, Volume 5, it says, page 100, if the church pursue a course similar to that of the world, they will share the same fate. Nay, rather, as they have received greater light, their punishment will be greater than that of the impenitent. If we act like the world, and she talks about here, if we get so engrossed with the cares of this life, with drunkenness, with all the things that this world is doing, then we're in the same state as they are. It says, many who profess to be the children of God follow their worldly pursuits with an intensity that gives the lie to their profession. As Christians, are we acting like the rest of the world? Sure. Maybe I don't commit adultery, right? I don't kill, I don't steal. But is my whole mind and focused on just my own ambitious pursuits, that I no longer have time to do the work of God? They will be planting and building, buying and selling, eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the last moment of their probation. This is the condition of a large number of our own people. I want us to be sincere and ask ourselves, is Marysville an exception to this rule? If we haven't been an exception to this rule, why not? Why are we following the trends of every church that has existed? Why is it that we get tired of doing God's work? We act as other people say, well, my father did the same thing. He gave his all to the church, and look where he is now. My grandfather didn't. Where did that get him? We won't know where that got him until God returns. But he did what God asked him to do. I want us to finish with a last few verses, brethren. Let's go back into Matthew. Because in Matthew 24, this is Matthew 24, talking about the end of the world, talking about everything that will happen. God says, don't look at wars, rumors of wars as a sign that I'm coming. Look at how everybody will be so obsessed with materialistic things. Paul says people are going to be obsessed with pride, obsessed with self. Now listen to the warning in verse 44 through verse 51. Matthew 24, verse 44 through 51. Continuing at that same thought, it says, therefore, be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. Now listen to the next verses. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord hath made ruler over his household, to give them meat in due season? Blessed is the servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. Blessed is the man that was not engrossed by the ambitions of this world. Blessed is the man that worked for God till the last moment. That wasn't obsessed with marrying, building, buying, selling. Blessed is the man that will work till I come. Verily I said unto you, that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. If God was to measure how good we've ruled Marysville Church, Rancho Cordova, or the Brethren, the Spanish church, right? If God was to measure the quality of work, the devotion that we've given, would he put us in charge of the heavenly work or the heavenly goods? Based on what we've done here, brother, not the results. Don't worry for the results. Based on the efforts that we have put in Marysville, are we worthy to be put in charge of a church in heaven? And I'm afraid of the answer, and I think we all know the answer. Brother, I think it's time for us to be sincere with ourselves and not just play church. I don't want to just play church. I want to be that church of God. I want to be that people of God. So while the rest of the world is so obsessed with everything happening, we won't be that way. Blessed is the man whom the Lord findeth doing or working. If God comes tomorrow, brethren, may he find us working here in Marysville. May we not be like the rest of the world. May we give everything that's needed for God's